Welcome back to the Piping Pastor. Returned from the 2-week holiday. So very glad to be home. I had mentioned in my last video that I might do some recording while out on holiday, but obviously that just did not happen. Doing a lot of visiting, a lot of traveling, and the few times where I was able to just sit and relax with a pipe on the front porch, I was like, I think I'm just going to sit and relax with a pipe on the front porch. So I thought, you know what? I'll do the vacation recap video when I get home. And that's what we're doing now. For this video, in my Boswell billiard pipe, I am smoking some Fusilier's Ration. For the trip, I took just 2 blends with me. I brought George's Dragon from Country Squire, which is a Virginia Burley mix, and Northwoods. So I would start the day with a coffee on the porch with the George's Dragon, and then in the day back on the porch again at sunset, usually with the Northwoods. So all in all, things went pretty well there. I found that for me, I'm not a big fan of vapors. I like straight Virginias. I'm just not big on vapors. And for a first pipe in the morning with a cup of coffee, I think a Virginia Burley mix like George's Dragon, or the other Country Squire blend that I really like, King's Highway, used to be Kingswell, King's Highway, which is a Virginia Dark Fire Kentucky blend. Those are great first thing in the morning cup of coffee smokes for me, because I don't typically want to start the day with something really dark and heavy, or like a lap bomb, even though I love them. First thing in the morning, it's a bit much. But I also drink really dark black coffee, and mixing that with just a straight Virginia, the Virginia gets lost. You might as well just be drinking your coffee with nothing else. But the Virginia Burleys or the Virginia Dark Fire Kentucky blends, I think, offer that nice light sweetness, but they're bolstered enough by the darker elements to stand up, as it were, to the coffee that I like to drink. So yeah, that was my routine for most part. It was pretty nice. I have a view, actually. I have a picture. Took a picture of the view I have from the front porch of the little rental property I had, which here, I'll show it here. So I got to see that every morning, and then in the evenings at sunset with the fireflies and the trees, it was really nice. It was a lovely little place that I had there. I'll show some interior pictures here. So a very old house, classically decorated, and it was an unusual situation that kind of landed me there. Normally, when we travel back to the Midwest, because we were there visiting family in Indiana and Ohio, and doing some college visits for my second daughter, because she'll be a senior this year. Normally on those trips, we stay with my in-laws. And my father-in-law, when he retired, bought this large-ish house in order to be able to host family, right, for large events, Thanksgiving, Christmas, so on and so forth, but also a couple of extra guest rooms for when people come to visit. So normally we stay with them and make use of those guest rooms, and they have a full basement as well that's finished. However, I'm allergic to cats, and they don't have a cat, but my brother-in-law does, and they were cat sitting for him for the 2 weeks leading up to our arrival. And my mother-in-law is a fastidious cleaner, right? Her house is immaculate, but a cat there for 2 weeks with my level of allergy, unless you have it specially clean, where the walls are clean, the ducts are clean, and everything else like that, it still makes me like sneeze with itchy, watery eyes and so forth. And it would have just been a miserable 2 weeks. So I got a little Airbnb about 5 minutes away from their house in kind of the historic district of the downtown area. Like I said, lovely town, lovely little area of town. It's an area of town where you could tell, in the 1800s, in the early 1800s, during the boom kind of area, boom time of that town, the wealthy people were building in this area. Those big manor type houses, from the early 1800s. Then, it went through a period of decline. The manufacturing that was based there moved out, and the town fell in hard times. And so a lot of those houses were abandoned, run down, turned into apartments and torn up and so forth. And then recently, within about, I'd say the last 5 to 10 years, it's kind of gone through a period of revitalization. So many of the houses are beautiful now. Still restored historically, as in the Historical Society obviously has a heavy hand there, but restored properly and returned to their former glory, and they're beautiful, and it's an amazing thing to see. And this is one of the houses that had gone through that process, is the house that I was staying in, and the owner was apparently able to keep it as separated apartments while still restoring it back to its historical roots. So as you can kind of see from the pictures that I took there. So it was a great stay, and really nice area, but before I continue on that, I want to get back to the cat. Kind of a funny story for the cat and for the neighborhood I was staying in, so I'll take them in turn. The reason my brother-in-law has a cat is because he adopted it from my oldest daughter. See, my oldest daughter, first year in college, incredibly bright, resourceful, responsible young woman, but with a father who was allergic to cats, grew up without pets. My kids all love animals. I love animals. Just can't be around them very often. So she always said, they've all said this, as soon as they move out, they're getting pets. Because my oldest and my middle child don't suffer from the allergy the way me and my youngest do. And so she, first year in college, decided she and her roommate were going to get a cat. They live in the dorms. Cats are not allowed. Pets of any sort are not allowed. I can share this story because I seriously doubt anybody on the admissions board of her college is watching this channel and putting this together. So, never having had a cat before, her roommate never having had a cat before, very new to animal ownership, and they owned this cat in an area where they were not supposed to have her. So they had to, and it was kind of funny because everyone on her dorm floor was kind of in on it because they all loved this little kitten. So they would take turns like fostering the cat when room inspections would come around. So room inspections would happen, and they had a system of notification if it was a surprise inspection, where they would get to my daughter and her roommate and be like, hey, they're checking rooms. We'll wait till they're in this room, and then we'll move the cat over here, and then this person can take the cat outside, and then we'll move back around here, and we'll hide this, and you hide that. They had this entire system worked out. Like I said, my daughter is very intelligent, very responsible, even when breaking, dorm room rules about pet ownership. But in any case, so the year goes by, and during the entire year, they kept this cat there the whole time. And then finally, towards the end of the year, her roommate and her were like, okay, you know what? The cat's bigger now, the cat's older, and it's not really fair to the cat to keep it kind of locked up and hidden away. They would take it out for walks on its little harness. And if any of you have ever tried to walk a cat before, you know what kind of a frustrating deal that can be. But, in the end, they were like, this is not the best environment for this cat. So my brother-in-law offered to foster the cat for a couple of years until Grace gets out of college, and then she can have the cat back. So, um, yeah. So my daughter choosing to sneak a cat into a dorm room ended up costing me a week's worth of Airbnb time. But it all worked out. My brother-in-law loves the cat. He's got a big house too, and the cat has the house to itself. No other pets. So the cat's very happy where it is now, and we got to go visit the cat while we were visiting family too. So you have to spend some time with her. And it worked out great for me. I had a little retreat area there that I could go and smoke my pipe because the wife's not a big fan. And when I say not a big fan, I mean she hates it. So it enabled me to smoke my pipe on holiday without any conflict of any sort. And yeah, so all things worked to the good. I don't know, to the rental property I was at. As I said, lovely place. Couldn't have been happier with it. I showed the pictures. Lovely view outside. And the neighborhood, as I mentioned, was kind of in the process of revitalization. So some lovely homes, but they're not all completed. They're not all finished, right? So I showed you the picture of the view from my front porch. Well, what you can't see is off to the right, kind of shielded by that big tree in the front yard, are two other houses that are also divided up into apartments. Now, the one I was staying in was an Airbnb home. So, make sure that's still on. I haven't seen it in 2 weeks. Battery could have died. So, as I mentioned, it's an Airbnb home. The two across the way look more like they were divided up into apartments for permanent living. And as I was out on the front porch, the first couple of days enjoying my pipes, I noticed, they had front porches as well. And the house almost directly across from me, it seemed like it was only women that were staying in this house, this apartment house. It's like, okay, well, that's interesting. And the house next to it seemed like there were only men staying there. That's all I saw hanging on their respective front porches. I thought, well, that's odd. I thought, well, perhaps the owner of the homes rents the apartments out, but they're, a more conservative person, and they're like, I don't want mixed company, I don't want couples and children. So they only rent to men on this house and women on that house. Or it could have just worked out that way where, sometimes you have some friends get together and say, oh, there's a house over here with different rooms. You want to split it up and split the rent or whatever. So on day 3, it was a really, really warmish day. It was hot in Indiana over the week. Where I just happened to be out there, and I noticed some people coming and going from the house. And of course, it's really hot, so everyone's wearing shorts this day. And then I noticed, they all are wearing ankle monitors. So apparently, those two homes were divided by gender by the state because they were halfway houses or work release homes. So I told my wife this because she was staying with the in-laws most of the time. And I was like, oh, you know how those two houses across the street kind of look like they were gender divided? And I was like, oh, I found out why. And she goes, okay, I'm not staying with you at all. I was like, in reality, those are the best neighbors to have because they can't like throw wild parties. They can't go out and get drunk or whatever, and they can only go to work and come back home, and they can only go a certain distance away from their house. They have to behave themselves because they're being monitored. So, best neighbors you could have on vacation. She didn't really go for it, but they were lovely. I mean, they were fine. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I have no idea what they had done in up there, or what their history was, or so forth. But the whole 2 weeks I was in my flat, I saw them across there. They would sit on their porch and smoke their vapes, and then go inside. And that was about it. So, um, all in all, a pretty nice day. We did some college visits as well for my daughter, and we visited Purdue University, and then she's also considering um, uh, St. Mary of the Woods, Sweetbriar, and Findlay University in Ohio. And she fell in love with Findlay because she's looking for an equestrian program because that's what she does. And even I was blown away by their equestrian program. The barn complex they have at this university is larger than the main campus. We first get a tour of the main campus area, and then they're like, okay, your specific major would be equestrian studies. You have another tour at the barn site. And Findlay University is a relatively small university in a rather small town. So I was expecting, a barn, maybe one or two arenas. They have 3 barns and 4 arenas. And people donate their horses there for the program. One of the horses was donated by Lorne Michaels and was valued at $425,000. And one of the professors who was giving us this tour said the students have the option to lease any of those horses over the summer. So they can lease a horse over the summer and ride it and take it to the barn, take it to competitions. But she said, you have to get extra insurance, especially for some of the more expensive ones. That's when she mentioned that horse. And she's like, but some of them, just like 100, 125,000. And it's like, well, okay, well, we won't be leasing those. If you're going to lease over the summer, we'll probably lease somewhere back here in El Paso. But great facility, very clean, very large, several horses, well kept area. And what really impressed me most was when we initiated the tour, the professor of the equestrian program said, what are you thinking about for your major in addition to equestrian studies as a double major or a minor? And Miriam said, I've been thinking business administration. And she said, okay, good. We always encourage our equestrian students to either double major or get a major and a minor. So you're not pigeonholed just within the field of equestrianism. So you can have something else. Because there are very lucrative positions in the field of horse care, whether it's in veterinary sciences or training or some mixture of the two. But it is a small niche field. And if you have nothing else to fall back on, you can very easily find yourself just at a barn making, passable wages as a trainer and trying to build your brand to bring more people in for lessons and then spending all the money to take care of the horses that you use. And it can be a really difficult row to hoe. So they were encouraging all their equestrian students to have another gig, basically. And that really impressed me, that they were not only aware of the reality of the difficulty in maintaining a decent livelihood within that field, but they're encouraging their students right from the jump. Don't just think about working with horses exclusively. You need to have another backup plan. So the practicality of that really spoke a lot to me. So we all kind of like that program a lot. So we'll see what happens. She has another year, a few more visits to do, and we'll find out where we are. But in any case, well, I have a pipe to finish, and I have a lot of videos to get caught up on. I kept getting notices on my phone from all the subscriptions I have, but again, spent most of the time talking to people, and the time I got by myself, I was usually just smoking and having a coffee and watching the sunset, just enjoying God's natural splendor. So I will get caught up on those videos, so look forward to seeing some comments from me, and it was good to see a few people on there that I saw I had not posted for a while. So I'm looking forward to getting caught up with them as well. And then we'll get back to poetry in the Bible. So until then, hope you have a lovely week. As always, happy reading.